Okay. This is Tanya Pearson interviewing Brie Howard-Darling on August 24th, 2017 in Los Angeles, California for the Women of Rock Oral History Project. Thank you so much. It's nice to finally meet you.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you too.
Thank you. So you've seen Alice's interview, so I start at the beginning.
Okay.
So if you could talk a bit about your family of origin. I read that you grew up in Alaska and didn't move back to California, I think, until you were 8, it said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I was actually born in Northern California, and then we moved away because my father was in the service, and we were in Alaska. We were actually in Washington for a while, and then we moved to Alaska, lived there until we were 8. Then we drove the whole family in a car through Canada all the way back down to Northern California and pretty much stayed there until I moved to Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. And what was your relationship with your parents and your siblings like?
Fun. You know, I have 2 brothers and then a sister who's a lot younger. She's 9 years younger, so I kind of grew up with my 2 brothers, one younger and one older. And we had a great relationship. I just remember it being kind of fun.
Yeah, because it sounded like, well, I mean, that creativity was sort of encouraged in your household.
Yeah, I think that my dad was probably tone deaf, but my mom came from a kind of musical background. She didn't play music herself, but when she would tell us about her family, because she grew up in Manila, in the Philippines, there was always a lot of music going on and a lot of partying and a lot of her uncles and I guess relatives played music and sang. Everybody sang, so they loved music. And so even though she didn't play, she encouraged us kids to play. And at one point, when we had moved back to California, she asked us what we each would like to play. And I think my older brother wanted to play guitar. My younger brother wanted to play drums. And I wasn't sure. I didn't even have a lot of time to think about it. And I said, well, I'll just play piano, which would have been great, except for we didn't have a lot of money. And she bought all those instruments for us. And the piano had a broken bridge, so it wasn't really usable. And so I just kind of borrowed my younger brother's drum set. And that's how I started playing.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because I don't know if I'm remembering correctly, but I read that you like accidentally started playing drums and then your brother willingly gave up his drum set.
Exactly.
Did you get in a band or something, or you joined a band?
Okay, there was a band in town. There was this kid that we had heard of. He was 12 years old and he was supposed to be some kind of guitar genius, and he had a local, a little band, and they used to do gigs, and they were looking for a drummer. I guess they lost their drummer. So my older brother, who played guitar, he had heard about it, so he was going to audition for this band. So the band showed up with the manager, which was one of the moms, and my younger brother's drum set was set up in the living room, and so they showed up at the door, and I happened to be sitting at the drums, just kind of fooling around and playing, and they gave me the job. So I took my little brother's drum set and my older brother's job, his gig, and that's how I started playing. And I was thinking about that the other day. And at that moment, had I not been sitting there playing, I'm sure I wouldn't have said, hey, let me play. So I would never have started playing professionally. And none of this. I was 14 at the time. So it's over 50 years. And all that career that I've had, which I love, I'm happy that that's how my life has turned out. None of that would have happened. Just that moment in time, I just happened to be playing. And I didn't really know how to play. I just kind of learned really quickly. I was banging sticks on the sofa and on the table and on my knees and just learning as I went.
And so you were a 14-year-old young girl playing the drums in a band.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I was really shocked and happy to read that your mom encouraged you all to play instruments.
Right.
Was the fact that you were a girl playing drums, was it sort of like an anomaly? Did people in the community, your family, think it was cool? Were you ever discouraged from playing like kind of a masculine instrument that girls didn't necessarily?
No, I was never discouraged at all. I think of the three of us, and I only say three of us because my younger sister is so much younger. She was a baby at the time. But I was never discouraged. But of the three of us, I was kind of like the wild one. I was pretty energetic and active. So no, nobody discouraged me. And I think really that's the reason I got the job. Because when the band manager walked in, she went, aha, a girl. Cool.
Yeah.
And it was a novel idea. Not a novelty, but a novel idea, I think. And that's part of the reason I got the job.
Okay, and you just said that you were kind of like a wild child. What kind of student were you, and how did you fit in, like at school and with your peers?
My family, my mother is from the Philippines, and my father is basically European, German and Irish. And they met in the Philippines when he was in the service. So when they moved back to California, in the small town that I lived in at the time, and this is when I met June and Jean too, it was a small town of less than 5,000 people, and we were the only minority family there. So I didn't fit in at all. I would hang out with the out crowd.
What was the out crowd like?
The out crowd were the kids that weren't popular. I was not popular. When I started playing music, that kind of changed a little bit. All of a sudden, the popular kids would come by the house, and they wanted to see who was rehearsing, because we would rehearse in the living rooms. There was no such thing as rehearsal halls in those days. So things changed a little bit. And also, too, it gave me something to focus on. It gave me, I don't know, kind of like a role to play. It kind of made me stand out in the crowd, because I didn't before that.
And who were did you listen to a lot of music in your house? Was your family into music? Like, who were some of your early musical influences?
We didn't listen as a family, but I was definitely glued to the radio. I was listening to Motown songs, and, when the Beatles came along, the Beatles, the Beach Boys, anything that was a hit, top 40 hit, I was glued to the radio. I loved it.
And as a drummer, did you have any drummers that you looked up to especially, or did you just play to play?
I think I just played to play. I don't remember thinking, oh, that's a cool drummer. Although, at the time, there was actually a girl drummer in a band on the radio. It was a band, I think, called The Vegetables. And I think her name was Karen something. It wasn't Karen Carpenter, although I found later that she was a fantastic drummer. There was a girl in a band even at the time. So this is in probably 1965 or something like that. And I remember thinking, oh, cool. I mean, I didn't particularly relate to it, but I noticed it.
Yeah. And did you play through bands all through high school? Like, was that a constant?
I played in that one band that I passed the audition. I played in that band. It's hard to remember, but it probably lasted maybe almost 2 years. So that was in 1964. And the only reason I remember that is because I think I still have a copy of my union card. I had to join the union in 1964 to play with this band because we were doing teen centers, we were playing on military bases, and I had to belong to the union, which was kind of a scary concept because my family didn't have a lot of money, and at the time it cost $80 to join the union, and that was kind of like a big deal. And I didn't think it was going to happen, so I didn't think I was going to be able to join that band. But as it turned out, I did. But that's the only band I played in before I met June and Jean and basically auditioned for the Svelts. And that took me all the way up until maybe 1968. And then I played with another group just to do a few club things. Then I followed the girls down to Los Angeles. And yeah, so really, I wasn't playing in a lot of bands.
Okay.
It was through high school, it was just the two.
I'm going to go back a little bit because I did not know this until I started researching for your interview guide. But your kind of first form of creative expression, it was visual art.
Yeah.
So did that kind of like precede music? You were a visual artist, or I mean, I'm looking at some of your stuff right now.
Yeah, this I made this when I was 16. That's June and Jean and me with two other members of the Svelts. But so I'm still doing the same thing, and it actually kind of looks similar, which is funny for me to see that. Somebody sent me that copy. But yeah, I started out drawing cartoons when I was probably in the second grade, something like that. I was drawing cartoon figures and writing comics. So yeah, I always loved visual arts, and the music kind of just came later when I was in my early teens.
And yeah, I want to get a little bit more into how you met June and Jean, but before that, so you were in high school, into visual art, you played in a couple bands, you were a drummer. What was your plan kind of after high school or after you graduated high school? And then what happened?
Yeah. I've never been the kind of person to plan too much, so I didn't really have a plan. Like, I didn't plan to be a drummer. It just kind of happened, and I still do. I love getting swept up in something, and if it feels good, as long as it feels good, do it. And when it stops feeling good, I'll stop. Mm-hmm. But I didn't think about what I was going to do out of high school. I was having fun playing, and I really enjoyed it, and I still do. I love different aspects of it. I love being a drummer because there's a certain amount of control over how. It's not total control, but if I want something faster or if I hear it slower, and not that I take advantage of that, but I like feeling like where the pocket is. I love that about it. I love performing. So I think I was just living in the moment through high school.
And how did you meet June and Jean while you were still in high school?
Yeah, I was still in.
You moved to LA together.
What happened is, and I don't remember the exact years. I think it was in 1966. There was another local band called the Svelts that I heard was looking for a drummer, and I guess that first band that I was in, called the Keynotes. I guess that band had broken up or was going to break up or something. I don't remember exactly. It's been a long time. But I heard that this girl band was looking for a drummer because their drummer got pregnant. I didn't know that at the time. I learned that afterwards. And so we just found out who their manager was, and I don't even remember but I made the arrangements to audition for the band. And I made my way to Sparks, Nevada, because they had a gig there. And I guess I was supposed to see them play and meet with them, or I don't even remember how I got there. Maybe my boyfriend drove me. I'm sure I didn't fly. Sparks, Nevada wasn't that far from Sacramento. It was probably a couple-hour drive or something. So I got there, and I actually remember clearly meeting June and Jean. I thought they were like goddesses because they were so beautiful and tall, and it didn't even occur to me that we were all the same heritage at the time. So I guess Jean was 16 because we're the same age, and then June was a year older. And they had a gig that night, or they were probably playing there for a couple of weeks in this club called the Lemon Tree. And of course, we were all too young to be in the club, so they were on stage, so that was okay. I was in the kitchen watching all this through a porthole in the kitchen, trying not to get run over by the waiters that were coming in and out. But eventually, at the end of the night, I think, I was able to go out and sit in on a couple of songs. And that was my audition. And I guess it was, we had a good time. Everybody had a good time. And so that was it.
Your audition was a live show.
Yeah, it was a live show. But, there weren't a lot of options at the time. I mean, just to find another girl drummer was probably, kind of a deal. And the timing was just perfect. I mean, and their drummer before, who was leaving, I guess she got pregnant. That's when I found out that's why she was leaving. So I spent the next couple of years playing with June and Jean, and we'd just drive around California, and I think we did some things out of state as well, and Washington. I think that's the furthest I went with them, but we played all over Northern California. San Francisco, which was a ball. We actually did a show at the Fillmore in the afternoon, and in the Fillmore Auditorium, which was kind of a big deal at the time. And the same day that we played, the Doors were playing. And I remember watching them and thinking, it doesn't seem to be all that, which I don't think they weren't at the height, they weren't even near the height of their popularity. This is an afternoon show, so there you go. Who knows, maybe they hadn't even been together that long, but...
Not impressed by the Doors.
I wasn't, but who I was impressed with? I thought it was June and Jean that went with me, because June was going to Davis at the time. We went to a show at Freeborn Hall in Davis, and I remember sitting in the auditorium, and, we were young kids, and we were loud, and we were obnoxious, and we were probably high, and some woman walks up, and it was light, so I think it was in like an afternoon thing, and she walked by, and she said, "Hey, shh. Pay some respect," right? Because there was a band on stage. And I said, okay, fine, bitch. Not really. But I'm sure I thought that. And then, a little while later, she was up on stage, and it was Janis Joplin. And she was awesome. And she left. A couple of things she impressed me about was just watching her sing. You hear this about her, that she sang every note as if it was her last, and it's so true. She just put everything into every note, which had a deep effect on me. I really wanted to commit as much as she did. And also, it taught me to have respect for other players that were on, because she was saying, and she was already, known, and she was saying, basically, shut the fuck up. There's people up there doing their art. And I don't even remember who that band was, but that was cool. I mean, I thought that left a good impression on me. I liked it.
Oh my God, that's a great story.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know the exact timeline. I know that you got married and had a daughter. Were you pretty young? Was it like around that time?
Yeah, I got married when I was 17. Crazy. I'm just a crazy kid. I don't know what I was thinking. It was actually one of the guys in the first band I was in. I guess we hooked up. There you go. Hooking up in the band. And I guess we decided to get married, or I don't know why. First of all, I was 17 and stupid. And so shortly after we got married, I got pregnant. So I remember we probably did our last show when I was about 5.5 or 6 months pregnant. And then I left the band, and that's when they met Alice, shortly after that. Just another quirk of fate. They saw, I think this is the story I've heard, is they saw an ad at the Union or in a music store where she had put up an ad. She just happened to put up an ad, and they saw that. So that's how they connected. But yeah, up until the time I quit, I was like, it's hysterical. It's hysterical in hindsight, but we'd be playing, and I would have a bucket down by my drums because I'd be getting sick in between songs. I would just duck down behind where you couldn't see me and throw up and then sit back up again. I was just crazy times. So yeah, I had my daughter when I was 18, and Alice was in the band, but we all were still like moving around like a tribe. My husband then at the time, it seems like a funny thing to say because we were like 17 years old, but there you go, 17, 18 years old. We had an apartment, and then the next thing I knew, June and Jean and Alice lived across the street, because we just wanted to hang close. We were always tight, even though I wasn't playing drums in the band at the time. And then one of the other girls in the band and the manager of the band at the time, they were downstairs, right below us. So we just moved in a tribe. And then shortly after that, they all moved to LA, And within probably just a few months, I packed up my daughter, left my husband, and moved down to LA and lived between. There were two different camps at the time. The band was divided in two different camps. There was the Jean, June, and Alice camp, and then there was their manager. I guess she wasn't at the time, but Addie was the guitar player, one of the guitar players, and Linda Kavars was the manager. And so I would live at Linda's and Addie's for a while, and then move out and go live with June and Jean and Alice for a while, and we would move back and forth. And I eventually ended up staying at Fanny Hill until they moved out, pretty much close to when they moved out. So that took me up to, I guess I was maybe 21 or 22.
It's just crazy that you played in all of these bands and accomplished so much before you were even 22.
It doesn't feel like that much of an accomplishment. I mean,
Yeah.
not that it's not an accomplishment, but it just felt like I was just playing,
Yeah.
just doing it.
And did you stop, was it just kind of expected that you wouldn't play with them anymore once you had your daughter? Did you leave the band, or did they...
No, it wasn't that at all. It was just that I was pregnant and I couldn't keep playing.
Yeah.
So I had to stop for a little while, and they needed to keep playing. So they found Alice, and so they continued on. And it wasn't like I was going to get my job back and, kick her out. But I didn't stop playing. Shortly after I had my daughter, my husband at the time, Mike, and I put a band together with one of the ex-Svelts members, Kathy Carter, who was one of the women that was in and out of the band. She had a baby around the same time, so she and I and my husband started a band, and somebody's friend was playing bass. I'm not sure where they came from. I think it was from Kathy. So we were playing around town. It's not. But then what happened is Kathy and I decided we were going to follow the girls down to Southern California. So we packed up our babies in, I guess, her car and loaded the trailer of what we needed to take, and we drove down to LA, and that was it. We were in LA. So. And as soon as I got to LA, even though I wasn't playing with June and Jean, I immediately was, playing with somebody. But there was a short time when I think because like I said, we all used to hang out and move as a tribe. We were all going to these different jam sessions, and Richard, who was already, working on producing their record, came to one of our jam sessions and saw me sing and asked me to join the band as lead singer, which is why there's a few pictures hanging around with Alice as the drummer and I'm the lead singer in the band. And that lasted for, I don't even know how long, maybe a few months. But then as they got closer to actually setting what the record was going to be, I guess Richard and Roy Silver, the manager, decided to carry on with the group being like modeling it after the Fab Four, the Beatles. So it was like a female Beatles since they played, which made sense. So I was let go as singer, and they went on as a foursome. And that's the only time before that Alice and I had ever worked together before now.
Oh, that's when Alice was still the drummer.
Yeah, and I was the singer. Yeah. So, and the cool thing is I saw on her interview with you that she said she thought that was a mistake that Richard and Roy made, was to let me go, which was very cool for her to say. And it was devastating at the time. I remember just feeling like I had something, and then it just as easy as it came, which I guess really in hindsight is not that easy, it was gone. And, I just carried on. I found another band to play, and I loved I played with a band for a while called Fat Jack, and it was like really hard-hitting, heavy rock. I was using these huge drumsticks. They were 1 and 2 S's, which is huge. And I would turn them around and use them backwards like baseball bats. And my hands would would split open and bleed because we were playing so hard. But it was so much fun. But, you get something from everything you do. And the one thing when Alice and I talked recently, I said to her that even though it felt devastating at the time, what it did for me is I had a record deal and I had a band, and we had, moved up, to a different level. And having had experienced that for those few months, however long that time was, it made me look for that again for the next 45 years. I mean, I woke up every day wanting to have that again. And I got an opportunity to have it again a few different times, but I think that's what made me hungry for it. It wasn't like I played with the band until it broke up and then I stopped playing. That didn't happen, you know. I kept looking for that experience again, which I'm grateful for that in hindsight, you know, even though it didn't feel good at the time. And so the way things have unfolded, I don't have regrets about that. I mean, it worked out for me. So it wasn't really, although it felt like it at the time, it wasn't really a loss. It was a gain. Yeah.
There's I can't remember where I got this quote from because I didn't write it down. But it's you talking about how you had read June's book, Land of a Thousand Bridges, and like learning about her experience in Fanny and how different it was for you. And I'll just read it to you so it makes more sense. But you say, as I was reading it, I was reading our history and I knew how I felt at the time, and I had no idea what she was thinking at the time. It was really eye-opening. She talks a lot about how difficult it was for women in music. I didn't feel that way, and I don't know if it was because I was naive or I was oblivious, but I was having a great freaking time. I was the drummer in the band. I got to sing my ass off. We were playing and we didn't get turned down. If somebody frowned upon us, I didn't know it because I felt good about what I was doing. And then you say like Joni Mitchell, Bonnie Raitt, Tracy Nelson, and Mother Earth were all part of that scene. And it's really interesting. All the interviews I've done, just I think every woman has had a very different experience in the music industry. So you never experienced any like sexism or...
You know, I won't say that I didn't experience sexism, because I'm sure that happened. And I view it differently the more I hear about it. But I think for me, it was like, I don't remember anybody saying to me, you know, hey, you play pretty good for a girl. And I'm not saying that they didn't say that. I didn't hear it. And I'm okay with that, because I liked what I was doing. I was enjoying what I was doing. And I remember there were times when we would sit down, or we'd be setting up, getting ready to play, and I would be, if I heard any kind of thing like, oh, you know, any kind of negativity, I was just thinking, oh yeah, well, just wait, you know, just wait, because I will show you that that's not how it is. And I kind of still feel that way. I mean, I'm sure I didn't get gigs. There were times when I didn't get gigs because I was a girl. And there's one specifically, I wanted to audition for Kiss. They were looking for a drummer. And I don't remember exactly how it went down, but I heard that Gene Simmons didn't want to audition me. And I met him later, and I busted him about that. And he said, yeah, but you have to think about what we were. You know, we were appealing to, you know, a certain kind of crowd. And it was not because I was a girl. It was because that situation didn't call for it. It's like casting a movie, you know. And I got it. And I totally understood it. And I think that he was right. Of course he was. You know, they're one of the most successful groups for, you know, all time merchandising and what they do. So, you know, who's to say that was not a correct decision? But there definitely were times when, and this is an interesting thing, and I'm still kind of examining it. I started getting work more as a percussionist rather than a drummer, which is a whole different animal. And there were times I remember in a situation where I was set up next to the drummer with my percussion, and I didn't feel the love vibe next door. I wasn't getting the love, you know. And I think that a couple of things. Maybe it was, since they're a similar kind of instrument, I mean, everything is, you know, drums or percussion, but maybe we were taking up the same space, and maybe they just didn't appreciate it. Maybe I just felt like I wasn't trained well enough as a percussionist, because I'm a different kind of drummer and I'm a different kind of percussionist than, you know, there's a lot of different kinds. Like, I am self-taught, and I like playing songs. I like playing parts that fit around songs. I'm not a technical type of drummer or percussionist where I do a lot of solo-y stuff or do a lot of fancy stuff. And I consider myself more of a drummer. I was a drummer playing percussion, but there were times when I didn't feel the love. I don't think it was because I was a girl, though. You know, and I'm just saying this right now as I'm thinking about it. I think it had to do with maybe why I had that job. Because if you want to hire a percussionist, there were some slamming, more appropriate percussionists. But at the time, I was in a position to not accept certain jobs, and I didn't want a job just as a background singer on stage. I didn't want to do that. So I said, if you want me to play and sing, play percussion and sing, that's fine. I'll take the job. So I did that in a couple of situations. I did that with Duran Duran for a little bit. I actually got to, this is the only time this has ever happened where I got to play drums, play percussion, and sing, was with Robert Palmer. That was awesome. He is the only one that I got to set up all my gear and do all three things that I could do. That didn't happen a lot, which I think is curious. People want to think that you do one thing well. They can't accept the fact that maybe you do a few things really well. Except for Robert. So, thanks, Robert.
Oh my God, where do I want to go from there?
Can I just say something about that? Because I think it's just occurred to me. Although I was a drummer, somebody wanted a singer, but they didn't want somebody. It was Jack Wagner. He was a big soap star, and he had a huge hit called All I Need. So he was getting ready to go out on tour, and they wanted to have a woman's voice, a girl voice in the band. They wanted a singer, but they were afraid to have somebody who was just standing there singing, because they were afraid how the fans, because he had a lot of women fans, they were afraid how they would react. So they wanted me to have like some business. So they asked me if I could play percussion. At the time I didn't, but once again I said, sure. And then I realized that it's like completely opposite of the drums. You fill the holes that the drums don't. And, but what that led to was getting more work as a singer percussionist. That happened over and over and over again, which in hindsight, I'm thinking, why was I assigned to percussion? Why wasn't I hired as a singing drummer? And I don't have that answer. As far as being able to do the job, I look at it this way. I mean, I have hands. They're just like anybody's hands. They're attached to arms just like anybody's. I can play. I'm able to do what anybody else was able to do. Now, there's different styles of playing. There's a right person for the job and a wrong person for the job. But for some reason, I don't know if I assigned myself or I got assigned to doing another job for a long time. And I didn't play actual drums except for in my own original bands. And I don't know why that is. I don't even have an answer for that. I'll let you know when I figure that one out, if I ever do.
In my head, I'm like, I know why. Sexism.
Well, I have.
It's interesting though. So
yeah, I don't know I don't know what it is actually. Maybe there's some sexism, and maybe I don't really know. But I'm open to that concept. A lot of times I see or hear women complaining about that, but then I don't know why this is either, but when you have the amount of male musicians that you have and you have the amount of female musicians that you have, there's going to be more choices out of the male pool because there's more male musicians, which means there's more good male musicians. So there's a bigger pool to choose from. Which in a way, for women, it's like if you're really good in a smaller pool, you can really stand out in a crowd. So you can take advantage of that, Because it's not going to stay that way forever, I hope. I mean, I'm hoping that there's more women that, and I know there is now, of course, that fall in love with playing instruments that aren't usually assigned to women.
Well, it's interesting what you said about Jack Wagner, too. That he didn't, or not he, but who they...
The management,
whoever,
yeah.
Yeah, the management didn't want you to stand there by yourself as a woman, and then the women who were his fans would be probably maybe like a little jealous or something. You're this
exactly
woman singer, so they have to assign you an instrument too. So it's like percussion. I mean, when you look back at rock history, it's kind of it's like the more feminine kind of drum. It's like not sitting there playing the drums, but you can sing and do a little percussion.
Well, it's interesting. I don't think
flesh
it's. I don't think of it as more feminine.
Yeah.
I just don't. But I just wanted to say I understand the concept because he was like it's a weird thing that our society has created, these mega stars that have these fans. I mean, I was in an elevator with him when one of the fans walked in, and it was her opportunity to say, "Wow, so cool to meet you." And she couldn't speak because she was shaking. I think she might have peed in her pants. Yeah. You know, so I don't understand, which I think is a really interesting thing, that thing that happens. But it was just the opposite of what I thought. The girls and the women who came to the shows loved me, and I loved them, and it was an awesome thing that happened. Mm-hmm. It was completely not what they were expecting, but nobody had any experience with it at the time. But it was completely the opposite. They were glad to see. What they would say to me personally was they were glad to see a woman standing up there with all the men and being just as cool, if not cooler. And I didn't treat the percussion in a feminine way. And that's a weird thing to say because it is feminine because I do it. So, but regardless, I mean, I slammed the motherfucking things, and they loved it. They loved the energy. They loved the rawness. They loved, you know what it was? Fucking back to Janis Joplin. If you're going to do anything, do it 1,000%. And that's how I would play. And those girls, because they were all women at Jack's shows, they loved it. They loved it. So it was kind of a cool experience finding that out.
I just want to clarify. I don't mean that I think percussion is feminine. I just feel like like Shaka Khan and Sheila E. and stuff. It's like they're percussionists, and I don't think.
Sheila E. is not. I would
as well,
if I had to put a description on her, I wouldn't call her a feminine drummer. I wouldn't.
Yeah, no.
She fucking slams. Yeah.
I just feel like kind of when women do anything, and it's written about or included in rock history, it becomes, you get kind of like relegated or designated to feminine categories. But I don't.
Interesting,
mean that I think
right?
That
yeah, I didn't know that. I never thought about that percussion as a feminine category. But here's the funny thing: is like I can think of a few girl drummers. And when I say few girl drummers, I mean girls or women or whatever, who slam. And then there's a few of them that I have so much respect for because they're like technical masters. And I've seen a kind of a lot of them lately, and I just think that's so fucking awesome. That's cool. Janelle Burdell, I just saw her doing something on Facebook the other day because she just got a drum from made for her by someone who's making one for me, which is awesome. And so there's that thing. And then there's girl drummers that I see who don't feel to me like they dig in. Now, having said that, I can say the exact same thing about male drummers. Exactly. There's the guys that are technically proficient, and then there's the guys that like slam, my heroes like John Bonham or whatever. And then there's guys that play like a fucking limp dish rag. And I'm not going to call that feminine.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to call that playing like a girl. They play like a dish rag. And I know some girls that play like a dish rag. And then there's also, you know what I think? There's more men. So you see more, slamming male drummers than you do see women drummers. The pool is bigger now, but it's still, the percentages is crazy. Mm-hmm. Since, half the population is women, why isn't half the drummer population women? I don't know. Why isn't half the guitar player population women? You know what? When I think about that, I just say, if that dream passes in front of you, fucking grab it, man, because it's fun. I hope more women do.
That's really good. I wanted to leave some space at the end of that because that's going to be a really good quote. Okay, this is when I do not have an accurate timeline.
That's okay. I'll do my best to straighten it out, but hey, this is a long time ago.
Yeah, but I mean, you've worked very consistently in the music business, like all throughout the 80s, and you've toured with big musicians and like very notable people. But it seems like for the most part, your experience when you were not playing in a band, you were kind of working behind the scenes and as a songwriter versus as a performer.
No, I never stopped as a performer. The only time I might have take what I would call even a break was in more recent times, like maybe in the last 10 years. But no, the whole time I was writing songs, I was still playing. The times when I was touring, of course I was playing, and sometimes I would have my own group at the same time, and we would just have to figure out how that worked out. But it always worked out.
And yeah, I don't see, because there wasn't much that I could find before you sent me your bio.
Right.
And I know that like you've written songs for other people. How did you get into that kind of work on top of the performing?
It once again is all just kind of happy accidents, being at the right place at the right time. I met Glenn Ballard. He was actually working at as a receptionist at Rocket Records, and my husband at the time was playing keyboards with Elton John. Mm-hmm. So that's how I met Glenn. And Glenn is a very successful songwriter and producer now, but at the time he was a receptionist, but he was starting to write songs. And I think he called me. He knew that I sang and asked me to sing on something, so I did. So he knew that I sang. And then a couple of years later, he wanted to start a band, and so I gladly went, joined that band with him, and instead of doing covers, we were writing songs. So that's how I started writing professionally. I'd written a couple of things or worked on a couple of things, but that was my first writing as a professional. And I guess he was already signed writer at MCA Music. And they liked a couple of songs that we did for our band, so they signed me and the bass player at the time, Davey Farragher. So we were all writing songs for MCA Music at the time. And they built a studio in the basement of the building to do demos. And so we would basically live in that basement recording things all the time. And then we played around for, it seems like a couple of years. Now that was in the late 70s. Right. And so I think for the amount of time that we worked together, Davey, Farragher, Glenn, and I think we probably wrote like 60 or 70 songs. And a few of those got covered. But one of these days I got to go through my tapes and dig in there and like play them and see if there's something, to pull out of there, at least to listen to. And one of the songs that we wrote together, actually Michael Jackson cut for Thriller before it was called Thriller. They recorded a whole record and heard this song called Nightline and loved it. I think it was Rod Temperton and Quincy Jones were producing the record. Loved the song, and they scrapped everything they had recorded and they started recording songs more in the vein of that song Nightline. And then meanwhile, our publishing company had already gotten the song covered by Randy Crawford and the Pointer Sisters. So I don't know, it worked out. And I heard stories, and I don't even know if they're true. I'd heard that Michael Jackson's people asked for all the publishing, and MCA Music couldn't do that. They couldn't set that precedent. So they said, no, we can't do that. So they took the song out of the running for the record, and went ahead with other songs that whatever else is on Thriller, and that was kind of a bummer. But the song is it's actually online. You can hear it with Michael singing it, his demo of it, so it's pretty awesome. And one of these days, I imagine, since it's one of the songs that he did record and sing on, that it'll come out, it'll get, it'll make its way, or it won't.
I didn't know you could hear it online. I did read that, and I was like,
Yeah, you can still hear it. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It's the first time I heard Michael Jackson singing my song was weird. It was kind of devastating because, president of MCA Music at the time said, "You want to hear it?" And had it in his desk drawer, and played it for me. He says, "You better sit down though, because it was kind of, this is after it started selling a lot. That was before it sold as many millions as it did. So I don't have, I was going to say regrets. I mean, of course it would be great to have that money, but I don't know. See, stuff wouldn't be happening the way it is now if that would happen. So cool.
Yeah.
The money would have been cool though.
Where from there? Yeah, I mean, I just feel like I couldn't like pick and choose. You've worked with so many people, and I'm a huge Carole King fan too. So obviously, I just want to be like, what was it like?
She's
to work with Carole
awesome.
King? Like, but I'm sure people ask you about that all the time. So just if there's anything that you want to talk about that time period, about touring and performing with other people. I mean, whoever made an impact.
I feel like I'm really lucky. I hear horror stories about people going out on tour and things are uncool or whatever. But I got to say, I've been really lucky. I've worked with some great artists, and of course, Carole King is one of them. There's a lot of awesome things about her. I think that she would give credit to the band that was there playing with her. She would always thank us every night, on stage in front of her thousands and thousands of fans. And she was just the kind of person who would remember not just us, but the crew that worked for her. And then she would go so far as to thank the local crew, people that she didn't even really know. But there's a lot of people that bust their butts to make a show happen. And she was grateful to them and to the audience. Very down to earth, very awesome human being, and amazingly crazy. And of course, she's talented, but here was my perception. Every night at the end of the show, she would do the song "You've Got a Friend," and we would all stand around on the sides in the wings watching, because we didn't know what she was going to do, because she didn't ever do the same thing twice. And she would do these strange things where, I'm just calling them strange because they were like kind of out of this world kind of thing. She would just kind of ad-lib melodies, and she would start to go some places vocally, and I'd go, "Oh, don't," and then it would work. I would go, "Wait, oh wow, did she just do that?" I mean, crazy inventive things that you wouldn't expect. She was so a master of her instrument and piano and her voice that it is just so cool to watch her go places, just to watch her experiment live in front of, thousands and thousands and thousands of people. That's how secure she is in what she does, which is just awesome. Mm. So she was a very cool person to work with. And everybody I did get to tour with, which were a lot of people, there was always something great about the experience, Robert Palmer musically was that was like so flying by the seat of my pants, and like having to show up and be able to try some things. He would want to hear one time signature on one hand and one on the other, and I would have to figure that out and pretend that it was easy, and it wasn't. But when it came together, it was cool. He was musically, technically, like a pretty fun. And like I said, I got to play drums and percussion and sing. As a matter of fact, on that gig, I didn't do a lot of singing, which was pretty cool. It was, yeah. And, great musicians, the band. They were always, in those bands, they were all really great musicians. So that was pretty cool. I don't know if you have somebody specific you can think of. I can never think of all these people.
I know. Well, when you sent me your bio, the list is even longer than I realized. But like I said, I'm a huge Carole King fan,
Right.
so I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah. Plus, too, one of the cool things about working with Carole King is when I heard about the job offer and I contacted them back, it's like I already knew all the songs.
Yeah.
That's what I listened to growing up, you know. That's what I listened to the radio when I was, you know, whatever, when I started listening, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, were those Motown songs were Carole King songs, a lot of them. So I already knew all her songs. And how fun is that to sing what, you know, you first learned? Yeah, that was pretty cool.
This has been what has been really interesting for me to hear is you've basically been like involved in the music industry from a young age, like just how differently things operated back then.
Mm-hmm.
Like saying in your first band that you had to join the union and paid gigs and stuff like that. The music industry doesn't really exist in that way anymore. I mean, it still exists as an entity, I guess.
You mean like union
like record
things
labels and
right.
management and but what was your experience with record labels during a time when they were very much operating and
right.
successful, and how I guess, I mean, because you've been in the industry as a kind of
a utility guy. Yeah.
Like it just doesn't really work the same way anymore. I mean, people like release their own music now or
yeah.
crowdfund. They're not as reliant on a label to get their music out.
Right.
So just your experience as a songwriter, as a performer, as a touring working musician. With like record labels in the record industry.
Right. Well, the different facets are kind of interesting because, yeah, things are really different now than they were in, like, say, the early 70s. And I never signed with Fanny to Reprise. I did sign with Fanny, the last Fanny record, to Casablanca. But, you know, the funny thing is I don't really remember having a relationship with the record company. We had a manager. We had a producer. We just showed up and played, I think, basically. And then somebody in those days, when there were record labels, would pay a lot of money to make a record, to do whatever it took to make the record, and then, you know, put it out there, do all the PR and everything. And you're right, doesn't happen that way so much anymore. There's a lot of, I guess, independent record labels. Our new deal, it's kind of an amalgam of Fanny. You know, it's like kind of the next step, and we're calling it for right now, Fanny Walk the Earth. We have kind of an old school deal. Like, we have this deal with Blue Elan Records, and he kind of fashions his record company after some of the old school ones. Like, they actually gave us an advance. They're actually going to give us tour support. We're going to make a video. We got a 2-record deal. You know, they paid for production. It's paying for promotion. That's really kind of unheard of today. I mean, there's still some of the large record labels left. Not a lot of them, and I don't know because I don't really pay attention to that too much. But they've definitely cut back. You know, they don't do videos like they used to. They don't do promotion. Even the music publishing business, when I was doing it, they used to give us money to write songs, and they would go out and find the covers. Or they were a publishing house, so people would come to them for songs, and they would provide the songs. Well, at one point, I remember a friend of mine was, and I had not been doing it for a while, was working for a publishing company, and they gave him a certain amount of money to write songs, but he had to get the covers. That's kind of like just a bank, not like a publishing company. They didn't get the work for him. And then if he didn't get enough covers, then he was dropped from the publishing company. So I think things just change, It's like, I don't know, maybe it's just progress. And I don't find it troublesome. I think that as long as I get to play, and as long as I get to write songs, and as long as I get to sing, and as long as I get to perform, that's just manna from heaven. Of course, I would love the kind of success I haven't yet achieved as far as getting to do all those things on a record and having, success. And when I say success, I just mean X amount of people hearing it. I think that would be cool. But as long as I get to do those things on any level, that's pretty cool. I'm not going to complain. Well, that might not be true. I might complain a little bit.
Okay, this is like a little random, but
Okay.
I missed it earlier. You've said that you're a band person.
Yeah.
And that you love collaboration, but you also hate waiting for things to get done. So how do you manage like that kind of work ethic and determination as a member of someone else's band or someone who isn't maybe as driven, I guess?
I am a band guy. I like playing with other people. I love sharing the responsibility. I love sharing the spotlight. I don't know why that is. And recently I've been actually asking myself that question because I've been offered deals as a solo artist before. But for whatever reason, they didn't work out. But I don't think I was comfortable in that situation. I really like working with people. I think I'm just more of a team player type person. And I don't know why that is. I don't remember saying that. Like, I can't wait for things to happen. I'm trying to remember why I would say that. I don't know what that was in reference to.
Yeah. You have collaborated with a lot of people. How do you think your experience as a musician or in the music business compares to someone who fronts bands or who is more of like a front person? Because I interview a lot of... It's funny, I try to make sure... I interview a lot of front people, but I've also interviewed like a lot of drummers or bass players like Gail who maybe don't necessarily get the credit or like recognition that I think they deserve for like the parts that they actually play in rock history because they're not
front people,
the front person. Yeah.
Right. It's funny, as you say that, I realize there's, the guitar hero, and then there's like, the drummer who has like this, there's an image for each person, which, band member, not person, but band member, which is kind of interesting. But your question about the front person, I have been a front person. The first time I did it, it wasn't that comfortable. I didn't know what to do with myself because I'm used to doing stuff with my other extremities, right? But I kind of got a little bit more used to that. It's funny because I don't mind coming up and singing a song in front, but I really like singing and playing at the same time much more. I think there's a thing that happens when you have to demand so much from, each of your hands, each of your feet, and your voice, and then your mind is working at the same time, there's a thing I think that happens where you stop thinking and you have to depend on muscle memory or whatever experience. You can't think about, I have to do that. You just have to do it. And letting go of that concept of controlling it and just letting it happen, I think that's a magic place. As long as you know what story you're telling, you don't have to remember the lyrics. You just have to know what the story is about, right? And then I think the lyrics come because they're telling the story. And you don't have to think about what's that next line. That thing that happens when you're in your head. I don't like it there. I don't want to be there. Which is probably why I like performing live better than in the studio, because you are under the gun. There is no, there's no stopping the tape, or stopping the record. And I like that. I like being under the pressure of having to just do the job, to just do it instead of piece it together.
Do you find it kind of meditative too? Like what you were just saying is like being in the zone or
Yeah.
muscle memory. Like you just
Exactly. That's what it is. It's the zone. You have to be there. So if you've done all the homework, if you've done all the rehearsing, if you've done all the preparation, if you know the story, you don't have to think about it while you're doing it. You just can do it. And when I say you, that's my experience. But it's being in the zone and letting happen what's going to happen, being prepared and then letting it happen.
Okay, this is another kind of random question. How did you get into acting? You've been in 4 films. One, I will say that Sophie and Michael are huge fans of, and so I promised them that.
What is that?
Android.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're filmmakers too. So yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't that a funny film. That was such a gas doing that. You know how I got that is, I was one of my friends, musician friends, was having a birthday party, and the director of that movie was at the party, and he just saw something they had been looking for that character, Maggie, and for a while, it was the last one to be cast, and he met me at a party, and he just liked whatever that was that he saw and thought it would work for that part. So then they proceeded to strip all those characters out of me, which was weird, but, because I was doing a particular character, so at the time, I think I had, this is a long time ago. This was in the early 80s. I think, I had, 2-colored hair. Well, that wasn't going to work in the film. So, of course, all that kind of special stuff that you do to yourself that's a little bit unusual, all that was stripped away. But I guess there was an essence that he was looking for, and he saw that. But so that was scary, and fun at the same time.
Yeah, you enjoyed it? So you did it. You did a few.
Yeah, I did enjoy it. If I got the opportunity to do it again, I think I would be better at it. I think it's the same thing as being in the zone, being prepared, and then letting all that go, letting all your inhibitions go, and just being willing to expose yourself completely and take on a character and just go for that and not think about, do I look good? Am I doing this right? All that technical crap, am I standing in the right spot? Is my voice loud enough? Was that the right, dialogue? All that crap, I love it when all that shit is out of there and you're in the zone and you're like committing 100%. Mm-hmm. I think that's when the most cool stuff happens.
At the beginning of this interview, you mentioned something about going with the flow, and when an opportunity arises, just everything that you've said so far is just like you kind of seizing opportunities. Like all of these things seem to have happened really organically, like just meeting someone at a party and then doing a movie. It's so interesting.
You know what I'm recognizing just recently too is that happens. I think it happens to everybody. I know that it happens to me. There are opportunities that float by that are in your sphere all the time, and all you have to do is recognize them and go for it. And somebody mentioned, a couple of weeks ago about, being afraid or having fears about things. And I wake up with fears about stuff all the time. Like, should I do that? Do I know how to do that? Did I just accept a job that I don't even know how to do? But yes, I've done that a lot of times, and it's always worked out. I feel really fortunate. The thing I feel the most fortunate about is recognizing opportunity and just saying yes. Or seeing it float by and grab it. Or, thinking about what it is you might want to do. I might do that a lot now. The opportunity to do this record. At this point in our lives, when there's no real, at least the record industry is completely different. At this age, to have a record deal and to have somebody giving us money to do it and support it and to think that we're the bomb, fuck, man. That is so awesome. And I think there's a part of me that when I went back to do the tribute, June's tribute, that I think that I knew that was a possibility. A real vague one, because there was no hint that could happen. But I think there was a part of me that realized, just do the work. And if it comes up, you're ready to do it. And that's what we did. And that's what happened. All the pieces fell in place. But I'm really a believer that there's a lot more opportunities than people realize. You just have to be willing to risk it all,
Yeah.
Risk embarrassment. What the fuck? What is embarrassment work, You might say, yeah, I can do this, and then you can't. So the fuck what? If you don't try to do it, you'll never know if you could have done it or not. And I think that's worked for me, like I've said yes to a lot of gigs, and then what the fuck? I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to play drums, and I just auditioned for a band. I don't know how to play percussion, and I said, yes, I can do that. I mean, that's... I think the lucky log fell on my head. Seriously.
Well, I mean, it's not really lucky. You just kind of like walked through the fear, I guess. You just didn't say no because you were afraid.
Right.
You just did it.
Yeah.
And now, like, when you said that you took the percussionist job without being a percussionist, but now you're a percussionist.
Yeah, right.
Like, now you're a drummer. Now you're an actress.
Yeah. I guess that's so hard for me to say, yeah, I guess all those things are true.
Yeah. Said yes to stuff.
Yeah.
I do... you are a mother, and so you had kids, like, while you've always had a career. Was it ever difficult to kind of, like, maintain a work-life balance, or how did you...
Yeah, I actually used to wonder, was that one of the reasons why it was easy for Richard and Roy to let me go from being the singer in Fanny? Because, I had a daughter. Nobody wants to rip their mom away from their kid. I mean, I wonder about that. I don't know. I was 18 when I had her, so I wasn't exactly a responsible mother. I mean, I continued to play. I mean, I remember there were times when she would be sleeping in my bass drum while I was at a rehearsal. Of course, it was well padded and it wasn't like blowing up her eardrums. Or, I would drag her places that, I wasn't taking her... Okay, not that I didn't take her to the playground, but I would also take her, to rehearsals where she would have to, like, sit and wait through them for, hours. I guess, it was hard, and I was, wasn't like the best mom because I was young, but is what it is, and we're good friends, so she doesn't hate me, so I guess it's a good thing.
How many kids do you have?
I just have one daughter.
Oh, just the one daughter.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because you have grandkids.
I do. I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I have 3 grandkids.
Because I see like just a lot of people on Facebook all the time.
Yeah.
My friends on Facebook. I'm like, who are all of these like
I have this
children?
Kooky family. I mean, they're all so, bright and creative and awesome and fun. I mean, I love my family. I've been fortunate that I don't have any bad experiences. Like some people have troubles with their families. I don't have that. When you asked me earlier, how was it? It was pretty cool. My mom and dad were great. I mean, okay, sometimes I hated them, but that was like a kid's job. But yeah, we have Dave and I love having this big rollicking family, and between his and mine, and they're all down here, and they all intermingle, and they all work together and know each other and love each other. It's pretty awesome. I have no complaints about that.
You all look very happy on Facebook, so
yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's nice to see.
And they're such like, I mean, I look at them and I think that is so bizarre looking, and then we have some quirky family members, and I love that. Yeah.
Okay. You're recording this album now, but before this, you started a cake decorating business.
Right.
How did you fall into that?
Accidentally, like everything else. My daughter actually asked me to help her make a cake for somebody, and I love doing artistic things, so I helped her, and it turned out kind of cute. She wanted to make a Hello Kitty cake for a friend's shower, and so we made it Hello Baby. But it was cute, and then a few years later, all these cake shows started happening on TV, and I just thought it looked really fun and interesting because I really like building stuff. I also, besides making easy art, drawing, not that that's easy, but I like building stuff. Like I've remodeled a couple of houses, and, the landscaping in the front of the house when you drove up, I did that. I mean, not just designed it, but physically did it. I like doing that kind of stuff. I like making stuff. So actually cake making, somebody needed a cake. I just decided I could do it. I don't know why I thought I could do it, but I decided I could. So I made this cake for a friend. And it turned out it was a disaster. It didn't work. I made this, he was having his first baby, and so I made this big oval cake. It was about this big. And I wanted it to be a screaming baby. And I just decided I was going to make it red velvet. That sounded good. And so I, put the icing on it. And I put this very unattractive face on it. And what happened is, it would have worked out okay, but the red velvet kind of the color seeped up through the icing. So it looked like this baby had a rash. It was really ugly. So he never got his cake. Besides that, my cat jumped up on the table and took a bite out of the butter. It was like I was seeing these holes and I was going, I don't remember doing that, And it turned out the cat was getting up there when I wasn't looking and was biting chunks of icing out. But it just sounded like something that I would enjoy doing. So I made a couple of cakes for people, and people saw them and asked me to make cakes. So I ended up starting a business that lasted actually about 5 or 6 years.
Oh, was that long?
Yeah, we made during the time I had the business, and right now it's just kind of on the back burner because I don't have time to do both my commitment to this band and to do those cakes because it's really laborious and time consuming. So it's on the back burner. But we made over the past 6 years, we made almost 400 cakes. Yeah, and they're all different. They're not. It's not the same design over and over again. Of course not. That would be easier, But it's a fun thing to do. I like creating stuff. I like making stuff. So it's just more of the same, making stuff.
Yeah. And what would you say is your primary creative outlet these days? So you
Music.
Now it's music again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's back to music. It was, it's like when I was young, I drew, and I'll always be an artist. I love making art, but I love music and I love performing. I love performing. And in order to perform well, I like being, for me, performing is telling a story. And I can own that story better, which means I can perform better if it's the story that comes out of me, which means if I write the song. If it's my story, I can perform that better. I think as a performer, I can own another story. I can make it mine. I can make it mean something to me. But it's really fun to be able to do the songs that I either write or co-write. I love that.
Yeah, and well, you did mention the new Fanny record, and there's going to be a documentary as well.
Right. Yeah, there's a documentarian, Bobby Jo Hart. Mm-hmm. She's wonderful. I went to see her current documentary that's out before we went back to record, called Rebels on Point, and it's awesome. She's awesome. She's wonderful to work with, and she's just super, super creative. That's a hard job too.
Oh,
you filmmakers. I have great respect.
Whose idea was it to get Fanny back together and to do this record? Like, who reached out to who?
Well, okay, so when we got together to do the 3 or 4 song Fanny set at the tribute, when we first sat down to play together, I hadn't played for a while. Jean hadn't played for even longer, and I don't think June had. She's played, but not performance level playing, in quite a while. So when we first started playing, it sounded good and it felt good. I think we all went. I remember I went, "Ooh, this sounds pretty good. This sounds really good," And when we got done rehearsing the couple of songs, we talked about it, and we were kind of on the same page. And I knew in the back of my head that, my husband was doing a lot of records. He does a lot of records for other companies as well, but for this new company, Blue Alon. And I think somewhere, I must have had the idea, well, maybe they'll, get wind. And that's exactly what they did, it's just one of those things. Once again, after we played, I met this woman who said that I got a little video clip of it, 18-second video clip, and I said, hey, can I have a copy of that? And she so kindly sent it to me, and I posted it on Facebook, and Dave saw it and liked it, and he was Facebook friends with the company president, and so he saw that, and they talked about it, and so all of a sudden, we were making a record, and it just, the pieces fell into place, but there's so many things that could have happened that wouldn't have worked. Like if I didn't have that snippet of our performance, that if I didn't say to the woman's name is Helen, if I didn't say, hey, can you send me that? Or if she would have said, or if she would have forgotten. Any of those little things didn't happen, this might not be happening. And it happened to be a pretty cool little clip. It sounded great, looked great.
I have one on my phone right now. I could have been the one that had to get Fanny back together.
Damn, girl.
I know.
Did you tape that? Did you get little...
I only had my phone, but yeah.
That's what it was. It was an
really
iPhone
excited,
snippet.
Yeah.
It was 18 seconds long.
I probably still have one of them on my phone. Yeah. And the rest I have on my computer.
Cool. Well,
Yeah,
but that's so
really
cool.
good.
Yeah. I was so glad that she said to me, hey, you want to see this? And I got to hear it.
It was so cool.
And it is a pretty cool thing that we are back together doing this. With all the, the bumps in the road and all the wonderful things, which is just life, right? I think it's pretty cool that we get this opportunity to do it and that we came up with, we had never written together before, which is so bizarre.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no. Why would we have? Like when I left the band at 18, we weren't writing songs yet. Now, we did get back together after the Fanny version that did the first 4 records. After that, then Jean and me and Patty Quattro and Nikki did it, the last record. And then after that fell apart, we actually got together a couple of times to try to do other projects that we never recorded. But we got together again. But we never really wrote music together. And I don't know exactly why that is. I remember June wrote a few songs and we would work on her songs. Maybe that version of the group just didn't last long enough to get into that. I don't even know why. But so we got together for this one a couple of times and came up with some really great songs together. The whole album they're all originals. I wrote, I think, 5 of them. June wrote 5 of them, and we wrote 3 together. The 3 of us together, June, Jean, and I. So it's pretty cool that we got to contribute all that we have to give, and not all that we have to give. I'm sure there's more, but you can only do so much on one record.
There could be another or something.
Yeah, well, there'll be we have a 2-record deal, so we'll be doing another one, and who knows what comes next. I'm open.
I know you'll probably be like a trapeze artist or something.
I don't know.
The next time I talk.
Actually, that's funny that you should say that.
Oh, no.
Because I've decided, I love watching dancers. I think they're just brilliant. I love seeing the condition of the human body when it's at its peak and it's able to do these things. So I've decided that there's no reason that I can't push my body to its own limits and see what I can do. All I have to do is get it there and see what I'm able to do. But I would love to be able to dance.
You never have before.
Well, I can do like, kind of, dance on my own terms.
Yeah.
But just like, actually learn moves. I've never been able to do that. I've never tried it, but I'd like to. Mm-hmm. I've always been doing kind of what I do, but I'm liking the concept of seeing, what else can I do that's not just my ideas, but I just love modern dance. I think it's fucking awesome.
I know some people out here who do that, so.
I do too, actually.
Yeah.
I know a few people, and they're really good dancers, and I wanted, if they're willing to show me some stuff.
Yeah.
Don't you think it would be cool if I could, just bust out into, some kind of, animator kind of thing,
It would be cool, yeah.
That would just be awesome. There's no reason I can't do that.
No.
So what the heck? So we'll see. We'll see what happens down the pike. But that's kind of in my head right now. So I've just actually been doing a lot of yoga and stretches just to get in the condition to be able to do some of that stuff. I would just love it. Like right now, if we're sitting here, if I could just bust out in some kind of cool move, I think it would be just awesome.
You could just
And I can't,
watch
but
the mic, yeah. Okay, I have just a few closing questions that I ask everyone, and I'm not looking for any kind of answer.
Just an answer?
Just an answer. Well, because I feel like the way I ask it, I'll ask you the question, then I'll explain why I'm asking it. But what are your thoughts on the visibility of women in rock history in general? Is there a gender discrepancy? Is gender not an issue at all? Or is it something that has changed for better or worse since you started?
Yeah, I think there is a discrepancy. But as I said earlier, there's a smaller pool of women. There's a larger pool of men. So let's say, I say, let's just make the pool bigger, Make the pool bigger so there's more women to be able to see. And yeah, honestly, I'm not a historian, so I don't look at that. I just know what I experienced. But yeah, there's a lack of women known for doing these rock and roll things. But I think also too that there's a lot of women front singers. And it's been a while, but I love that, Prince had women playing in his band, high profile band using women musicians. How cool is that? I don't know why that's not enough inspiration to make every girl go, I want to do that. What does it take to make every girl that hears a song and falls in love with music on the radio or whatever, on YouTube or whatever, what does it take to make everyone say, hey, I could do that? I don't know what it takes. But maybe some of us need to figure out how to help that happen. Let girls know that it's one of your opportunities. It's just as much of an opportunity as anything else that you might recognize that you want to do.
Yeah, that just made me think that maybe, because I know a lot of girls and young women who play in bands or play music, but they might not think of it as something that they can do like professionally. So it's
exactly.
More of a hobby, or you go to college or you have kids, or you
right.
get married, and it seems like they're the ones that it's more of a hobby than something that can actually be like
yeah.
a career.
Yeah, like you can it's fun to have the camaraderie of a band. I've always loved that. I think maybe it was good for me in the beginning to start out in a band with men, only because I didn't start out with women, so I didn't think that was it. That was the very end. After that fell apart for me, there was another picture that I could see that I could keep going on my own as a woman, as, I didn't have to be part of a band. Because I think that happens a lot when the girl band is over, they disappear, which is kind of, too bad, because, man, you just spent a lot of time developing something, see where it can take you. If that's what, appeals to you. But it's, I think that's kind of something that I would like to look into. How do you make that more apparent to a lot of girls and young women or older women that, yeah, you can do this. This is just as much an opportunity for you to seize as anything else you might recognize that you like doing. And there's no reason why you have to do just one. Pick a bunch, make this one of them, maybe, see if it fits, if you like it, because it doesn't fit everybody. It's not easy being a mom and a touring musician at the same time. That I can swear to.
No, from experience.
Yeah.
Okay, this one might be a little more difficult. How do you feel about your role and contribution to rock history?
better and better. You know, the more I contribute, the cooler it is. I don't look at it that way. Like, what have I contributed? You know, like, it's like part of the reason that we got a deal is because we were from one of the first girl groups that recorded. I mean, we didn't think about that at the time. That's not like we didn't go, hey, we're going to be the first. I don't think that stuff occurs to you. You know, you're just doing it because you love it, which, you know, sounds good to me. As I look back on it, for the reasons that I was just talking about, like making it more apparent to the future generations of musicians, of women musicians, whoever those are, whatever I can contribute, if that helps that happen, cool. The more I can contribute, awesome. I'm going to think about that, because when I have the opportunity, I want to say that, you know, hey, you know, like we have this song, When You Need Her. This is about women showing up for women. I would like to extend that, you know, to the future generations and say, hey, you know, we're there for you. If you want to do this, we'll do whatever we can, you know, we support that somehow. Make that voice a little bit more apparent.
And this one I just started asking because I've had had a lot of mixed feedback just about like what the project is called. This project, which is Women of Rock Oral History Project. How do you feel about that as a category? Women of Rock. Is it helpful or hurtful? Necessary or unnecessary? And would it be more productive to just like omit gender
Fuck
altogether?
no. No, I think it's awesome. I'm glad that somebody's doing it, because that's one of those things that some, you know, young woman might see and go, oh yeah. No, I think it's awesome. And not only that, not just for those reasons, but it is history. You know, whether I like it or not, I was part of a very small tribe of women who kind of did something a little different. You know, whether I recognize it or not, I was. You know, I am part of that history. So that somebody is recording that, and I think it's a wonderful thing. Yeah, no, don't erase it. Don't leave that out.
Well, I can't. What's funny is when people ask me like about this, oh, what do you do? Because I have a job that I get paid for, and then I do this whenever I can in my spare time. Like, oh, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going to do an interview. Who do you interview? And I'll just say, oh, musicians. And then people always, oh, I have this friend, this guy who plays guitar, and he's so good. And then I'll say, oh, no, I only interview women. Like, I don't interview guys.
Right.
So that's why I just didn't. I just don't interview. I don't interview male musicians. So I was like, I have to call it something.
Right. Why not be specific when you can?
Yeah.
I mean, how many people have done, you know, recorded oral histories of musicians?
Yeah.
Like 1 million? How many have done it about women
Yeah.
in rock history? Not very many, so cool. That's one thing that I want to do with our new project, with Fanny Walk the Earth, is I want to be razor sharp with what our goal is, you know, and sometimes that means trim some of the fat away. You know, and sometimes that hurts, you know, because I have a lot of musical influences. I love R&B. I love soul music. You know, well, I don't get to do that this time around. I still get to be soulful, but in a different, you know, it doesn't show up as much as what I have, and that's okay. But like I said, it's like not really comfortable. I'm sure there's aspects of what both June and Jean do that they're not getting to call on, but we can't do it all on one record, or else it becomes unfocused. And I'm down with that, because if we're gonna, you know, get another chance at making history, let's be real focused about it. Let's really be real clear. Let's be real clean. Let's aim at the target, like not aim at a big, huge target. Let's, you know, it's great that we're getting, you know, we have a wonderful journalist who's working with us with a biography. She's awesome, Jessica Ogilvy. I don't know if you know who she is. She's great. The person that's going to be mastering our record is a woman. One of the only women at this level, if not the only woman at this level, mixing, you know, modern, you know, successful records. So that's pretty cool. I think we're going to try to shoot for, if we can find the right person, to have a woman manager. I think that's just awesome stuff. I mean, that's my first choice. If they're not the right person, they're not the right person. But I love giving that opportunity, because there's a bond, I think, that happens that's really important. We'll see. It depends on who the person is too, though.
Yeah.
It really does. Right person for the job, but why not shoot for that? But yeah, I don't remember where I was going with all that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I always ask as a last question, what you're most proud of personally and or professionally.
Wow,
I know,
what a
it's kind of like
huge
an
question.
question, but it elicits lots of different kinds of answers. So it either goes really well or it goes very poorly.
I think, I'm just going to pull this one right out of my ass, is that I think the thing that makes me happiest about myself, which is, I guess, some form of pride, is having good relationships with people. I think, that's all the people in my family, my friends and people that I work with. I really love people. I love working with people. I like experiencing stuff with people, and I think that I've done a pretty good job at that. So that's a kind of I love that question, actually, because it really makes you think, because I don't know if you can pin it on something specifically, because yeah, I think it all adds up to that thing about your relationships with, and I would love to expand that. Man, there's some things I'd love to do with people that I don't even know yet, that I would love to get to know, and to, I don't know, bring something to the party. Bring something to the big party.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there are a million things that I haven't asked you, but is there anything that I haven't asked you that you wish I had asked, or anything that you want to talk about?
I don't know.
I know.
That's a huge.
I know, it's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, because we actually talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So, I don't even know. I guess not, maybe.
I mean, we can always do this again sometime, too. That's the good thing about oral history, is that, 5 years
you can
later,
catch
we
up?
can do another one. Yeah.
What a cool thing. I didn't know that. I didn't even think of that, but that's an awesome thing.
Yep.
To kind of see where it is.
Yeah.
5 years later.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Very cool.
So we'll just say this is good for now.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.